as you go to plan your composition, you can plan it, have your illustration board ready. But I don't want you gluing stuff down yet. I want you playing around with positions of things. You might consider cutting your materials. So I've got like a long strip here that works well to create some horizontals. Maybe I want to plan to have my piece end right about there. I don't need to cut it. I can just end my composition there. In fact, I could use something like this, the back of the paper, to tell myself, okay, that's where the composition ends. When you take a photo, you can just trim it there. Maybe I want to have some other kinds of shapes. And you can of course, cut your materials down, but don't be too quick to cut your materials down, because maybe you want to be sure to plan your composition. Maybe you want to think about where things go first. Remember that layering stuff can make a difference. So if, this little piece looks really different if it's above or below. I want you focusing on texture and pattern. But you can see I've added some things that I didn't have in my texture pattern example before that are textures and patterns. Even though they're also, I've got some, text words in there as well. So as I'm thinking about this composition, I want to think about what happens when I stop it at the edges, right? And I want to think about layering and placement. You've got some prompts. One of them is symmetry. So obviously this composition isn't working for symmetry yet. You've also got some examples, you've also got a focal point. So how could I create a focal point? Maybe a focal point is just a big different thing in the middle. Maybe I could think about things like directional lines, right? Or emphasis through color, emphasis through a change in shape, those kinds of things. And if we were in the classroom together, I would probably set a timer and say, play, no cutting. And then after a while, allow you to do some cutting. Because sometimes just playing around with your materials is an important part of the process. And you start to think about, how things are going together. What a difference if I use this edge versus that edge. I started to say you are welcome to use some materials that are not, like you can use some plain materials, but remember the focus is on texture and pattern. Looks like I have a lot of texture and not that much pattern, so I may want to bring in some more patterned materials to kind of add some visual interest to this example. Now, one other thing is, you aren't stuck with just what you can cut and rip. You can make other shapes as well. And so I actually wanted to show you a trick for making circles. So if you have something you can trace, you can simply put it down there and trace around it with a pencil and make your circle. But if you don't, or it's the wrong size, or it's not really what you want, and you don't have a compass, so, if you have a compass, you can use a compass. But if you don't have a compass, you can actually make your own. And this can be pretty flexible. So I'm tying a piece of string around a pencil. I might have should have done this before I started the video, but it'll be all right. Or you can tape it in place. So I'm tying this string around the pencil. And now this is going to allow me to create a circle of any diameter I want, depending how high and at what angle I'm doing. So I'm going to hold this down here. And now this allows me to, if I don't slip, tape it in place. If I don't slip, it allows me to draw a circle all the way around and make it nice and even. Mine slipped down as I was starting to do it. I'm going to see if I can do it better if I hold onto it the whole way. My paper's moving. There we go. Well, I screwed it up a little bit at the end. But you can do that sort of thing. Like I said, you can, of course, use something that doesn't move on you like that. Or if you have an actual compass, you can do that. So I'm going to cut these guys out and I'm going to add them to my composition. Notice that I scrapped my whole composition. I want you to do that. Just dump it when you're done with your first picture, because I want you to start fresh and try again. Because I don't want these compositions to all look like they're basically the same. I want you playing around with orientation and layering and different kinds of shapes that you decide to use in this piece, and see if you see what compositions what arrangements you end up with. If you only made the 10 pieces of paper, I've got extras here. If you only made the 10, you may start to get to the point where you kind of need more. So you're welcome to make more than the 10 pieces. You're welcome to bring in materials that you didn't have previously and work with them that way.